Hey fellas, welcome to part 6 of HobbyBoss's 1/18 scale AV8B Harrier build. In this exciting episode, do a lot of stuff off camera. Yeah, sure do. Hey Ringo, come here. Ringo, come here. Come here, you want to see the video camera, or the YouTube people? Come here. Come here. Come here, buddy. Sit. Sit. You just sit there. Oh my God, show them how big you've gotten. Say, oh my God, I've become a big boy. Yes, I have. I've been such a big boy. Give me a kissy. Okay, he's camera shy. All right. In this episode, what do I do? I forgot. Just take care of a few odds and ends. I get it almost all together. So the next episode, I should be painting. Now, I did skip over a lot of stuff. I did a lot of stuff off camera just because I was taking my time with it. And there's a lot to do. So I do go over the stuff that I've done. And, you know, I don't know. Is what it is. So let's go on with the video. All right, fellas. What I want to take care of now are these engine nozzles. And it's kind of a big issue with this kit. They come molded in with this shaft right down the center of the nozzle. And it's not going to be that big of a deal if, you know, you don't pick it up and look at it, and you could probably paint it black and somewhat hide it. And the purpose of these shafts are so when you plug it into the model, into the fuselage, if you turn one, you turn all of them, so they all move in coordination with each other. However, I'm just going to get rid of these, and I think what I'm going to do is just glue these onto the model in a static position. I think that's probably the best way to go. You could actually probably come in here after you cut these out and then put a thick piece of plastic card and then cut out that shape so you could glue it on there and they would all move. But it's kind of a gimmicky little thing, and I don't really think it's necessary. So now what I want to do is I want to cut that shaft out, and I've already done a couple. And here's a shaft on the other one. It's deep inside there. You can see that, just kind of an eyesore. And these are two that I did that I've already done, and they were a bit of a pain. It's not the easiest thing to do. Now I did cut out one of the fins and I replaced it with plastic card, and you could actually cut both of them out and replace them, but I really didn't think it was necessary for my purposes. But getting these cut out is not the easiest thing to do, and I went over several different ways to do it in my head before I tackled it. And I think what I've come up with is probably the best way. I'm going to remove most of the material, most of this shaft, with a heated X-Acto blade. And I've done this before on another video where I've used a heated knife. And a lot of the old school guys like to use this method for removing the clear parts from the trees because they are brittle. You can heat up an X-Acto blade and cut it rather easily without cracking anything. So how I'm doing this is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut around here with this heated knife, and it makes it a lot easier to cut the plastic because it's a super hot knife, and that way I'm not going to end up cutting myself. It's just going to make it a lot easier to remove the main material here. So we'll heat this up. Look at it turn colors. Oh, that's beautiful. I think that's really cool. All right. So I'm just going to take my heated X-Acto blade and I'm just going to come in here and cut around. And it doesn't stay heated for very long, so you have to keep putting it in there. So I made my first cut. And now I'm going to come along in here and try to cut the base of it. And you want to be careful because you don't want to burn through and cut into the outside. You kind of got to be careful with this method. I should be able to pop this right out. Isn't going quite as easy as the last one did. Go ahead and cut this. Here we go. There we go. There we got it. Okay. So I got that cut out. Now I'm going to go ahead and widen this little opening here. All right, I've got a rough cut, and I can probably come in here. Now it's going to be a little bit easier to work down in here, and I don't know how much of this you're going to be able to see, but I'll be able to come in here and I can start shaving off some of this little post down in there. It's just going to be a matter of being patient with it and getting it. And then what I can do is I'll come back with my Dremel tool with this little diamond head bit, and I can come in there and I can start chipping away and just kind of carving that out or sanding that down, just like so. It does take a little bit of time and effort, but if you're patient, you can get it. Then after that, I can take some of my other bits that I have, my other Dremel bits, and I can come in there and just do what I need to do to get the sides somewhat level. And then I'll come back with my thin sanding sticks and then start sanding them out, like right along the edge, and getting everything nice and smooth. Once I sand those down, then I can come back with some plastic weld. And what I'll do is I'll kind of smear this in there and get it all nice and wet with this, and it kind of melts the plastic and smooths out some scratches. It's not going to be perfect, but it will be much better than having that darn shaft through the middle of it. And then after all that's done, then I'll just cut out my pieces of plastic card, stick them in there, and voila. So I'm going to get on with these and get these done, then I'll show you what they look like. One of the issues that I've run into on the wings here are the lights right along the edge. Now, they don't fit in there real nice. One of the few things on this kit that just doesn't fit well. And you can see there, it's just going to look like a mess. Now, there are a couple different ways to fix this. I could put in some of my UV glue and handle it that way and have a nice clear light. But what I've opted to do instead, so we can see on this side, is I've just went ahead and filled them in completely with my CA and metallic pigment. And in order to paint the lights, what I'm going to end up doing is once I prime it, then I'll mask this area off, and then I'll paint the whole plane, and then I'll come back and once everything's all painted and all flat coated and everything else, then I'll come back and paint these. And there should be a little bit of a lip. Now, if you've watched some of my other videos, I did this on the Privateer build to make the windows on the along the side. There will be a little bit of lip where the paint is on the plane is higher than where I've masked off on the lights. So instead of trying to come in here and create a panel line or demarcation between the light and the plane, the depth of my paint is going to do that for me. So I'm just going to come along here, and you can see there's actually an area where you can see down to the bottom. The camera might not pick it up, but there's just so many gaps in this. So all I'm doing is just coming along here and filling in, and I'm going to make this all flat and smooth. Now, I guess technically you could probably leave this, but it's going to look like crap. And I'm trying to do my best here to make this look nice for the guy. And so I'm just going to do it this way. Now I have seen, like I said, people use the UV light glue, but that stuff's really hard to sand, and I think it's just going to be easier to do it this way in my opinion. And I can still come out with a nice looking result in the end. So I'm going to get to filling this and then sanding it smooth like I did on the other side. And then we'll come back and look at some other issues. I know I'm going to have to take care of the screw holes right along the bottom here. I'll probably just cut a piece of plastic card and fit it inside there. Now the plugs that they give you for all there's 3 screw holes. The plugs that they give you, I was able to sand these down and get a nice smooth finish. But they do stick out a little bit proud. So if I try to plug it with one of the plugs, it's going to be hard to get in there and smooth that out. So I think just laying a piece of flat plastic card over that real thin piece is going to be sufficient. One other issue that I found is the flaps and ailerons. They have them where you can move them. They've got little posts in here, and let me grab one real quick so we can check this out. Oh, my daughter called me from the other room and interrupted my video making. So, but yeah, the flaps and these things just don't move. So they have these little posts that stick in here, and you're supposed to close these up before you close the wings, and they just don't move anywhere. They just kind of like rattle around. So what I'm gonna do is just cut the posts off, and I'm gonna glue them into position. So, you know, I guess if you want them just kind of flapping around, they might be able to go up. I didn't really check up, but they definitely don't go down. So it's just kind of a gimmicky, stupid little thing. And there are going to be some other gimmicky things that I'm going to remove from this kit the way it's supposed to be built. But all right, well, I'm going to get on with these lights, filling these in and taking care of these. And we'll move on to the next little nugget. All right, fellas, so let's take a look at what I've done off camera. Now, obviously we got the 2 fuselage halves that went together. They went together pretty well. Not too many issues as far as that goes. Once I got that done, then I went ahead with this little area up here. I don't know if they call this the turtle deck, maybe. I don't know. But I sanded off all the details, the raised details that were on here. And then I scratch built some things that was a little more accurate. I also added this little rail for the canopy to sit on. Now here's the canopy, and I did do a lot of scratch building on this. Get a little bit of light down here so I can see it. But all that in there is plastic card. I actually had to widen the back here on this back wall. And I added a bunch of scratch built little details, some wiring, some greeblies, and also right along here. And I've also added these little plastic stops that you really can't see because it's black, the same as everything else in here. But what that's going to allow me to do is, and then again, I also filed away a little notch here for it to sit on the rail. So the owner's going to have this with the canopy open. And what these little stops allow it to do, so it sits on the rail, and then when you pull the canopy back, it's almost like a press fit because those stops wedge up against the side of the canopy there, or the cockpit, and allows it to stay in place. Now, I wouldn't tip it upside down, but it does allow me to put it in there without having to glue it down. The owner doesn't have to glue it down, and I don't have to use any magnets or anything. So basically a push fit. Now, I think that works out pretty well. And you can also see all that detail that I added in there is really gonna look cool. The canopy, when I was gluing all this stuff in, because I used plastic card, I accidentally got some Tamiya extra thin on the inside. Now I tried to buff it out with some polishing compounds, but and I could probably go in there and sand it, but now that I've got all that detail in there, I'm just gonna make a mess and break some of that stuff off. So is what it is. It's gonna have to remain that way. It's gonna be pretty beat up, so I don't think that's gonna cause too much of an issue. Let's see. What else do we got? I added the refueling probe. Now there's a ball joint on the refueling probe, and then you insert that and then glue everything in, and then the refueling probe pops up just like so. that's not going to be necessary, so I went ahead and ground down the ball on the refueling probe, and I'm going to paint that separately and install it later. Let's see, I don't know if I had the nose on. The nose went together really nicely. Everything was a nice fit up right along here. There's no real sanding necessary. And where it joins right along here, there's no issues as far as that goes. I didn't have to do any sanding or fitting. It's nice and flush. Let's see, one of the big issues I'm going to have to take care of when I go ahead and dry fit the wings and this little thing right here, let me grab it. Now I did add a little bit of detail on here. These doors aren't going to be able to be opened. I've went ahead and glued those shut because, you know, I didn't detail this really crappy looking engine anyway. So there's no reason to open any of this stuff up. I went and glued all that down. And then I added a little bit of plastic card. I don't know what these things are, but they're noticeable on the real thing. And in order for me to test fit the wings in this section, I'm going to have to be able to put it on there and take it off. Well, the kit has it almost like a plastic, like a plastic toy where it snaps on and then you're not supposed to take it off. So because they've got these little ridges right here on these two little attachment points. So I'm going to come in here in order to dry fit. I'm going to have to grind these off with my Dremel tool. So I'm not going to, if I put these on the way it is here, I'm going to have to end up prying it off and I'm going to end up breaking something. So I'm just going to go ahead and grind those off to test fit the wings in that section, and then I can glue those down. Another issue that I ran into was the tail section here. Now this piece on the end is supposed to light up. They've got like a little battery compartment in there. You put a coin battery in and then this light lights up. And there was a switch. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if you're gonna have that, you might as well light up the whole thing, in which case you would just light that up with the rest of the lighting. So I don't understand why they would just have this one little light back here. It's kind of gimmicky and kind of stupid. So I went ahead, we're not using that. I just glued it into place, ground off the light switch and filled that in. And so that's not even going to be used. That didn't fit real well, so I had to do a lot of filing and sanding to get that to be flush. I will probably add, I think there's another little thruster thing back in here. I'll probably have to add that. But other than that, that's like the major stuff on the top side. Now on the bottom, I did do a couple things. Now, let me grab the kit part, and I think this is, I don't know if the ammunition's stored in this area for the gun pods, or that's just a through point where the ammunition's stored in here and it goes through here and then goes into the gun pod, or into the actual gun. But here's the kit part of for this section, and you see it's kind of lame and cheesy, and it didn't really look like the real thing. So I went ahead and scratch built that area with some plastic card. Similarly to how I did the intakes, I just built like a structure inside and then put my plastic card on top, and then did my scribing and added some rivet detail. Another thing that you'll notice is I've added a pylon, a center pylon, and that's not a kit part. In fact, it's really hard to find any pictures of what this center pylon looks like when it's in between the gun pods. So the owner had sent me a couple pictures of another kit that actually had the pylon. Whether or not it's completely accurate to the real thing, I don't know. But because he wants this lantern pod. Now this didn't come with a kit. This was like a resin piece that the owner had sent me. It was a piece of junk, but I got it together and I think it looks pretty decent. So I've got that magnetized and it will fit on here just like so. So then I've got my little lantern pod in between the gun pods. Another issue that I ran into is the front wheel bay. And let me grab my little ladder here. Now the owner wanted this little step ladder that fits along on the bottom. Now because it didn't come with a step ladder, I had to make one. So I've just got some aluminum tubing, glued a piece of plastic card on the end of it, and then shaped it to where it looked close to what I saw in pictures. I also had to Dremel out, and I still need to do a little bit more work on it. Right down here, I've also got a little bit more seam work to do, but that's okay. So this is going to fit in here just like so. Now, because that's going to fit in there, the landing gear bay doors aren't going to be able to open and close because the way they had them, they just didn't fit well enough, and they made the landing gear bay doors kind of shoot out a little bit farther, so I wouldn't be able to put the ladder in the correct place. So what I've done is I'm not going to have this to where these landing gear bay doors can open and close. I'm just going to have them static. So I went ahead and cut off the little posts that wedge up in there and allow you to turn it. So I've just got these little posts that are going to fit in here just like so, and then the owner can glue them in just like that. So it's going to fit with my ladder in place and be, I think that'll look pretty good. So since I decided to do that, it's not gonna be possible for the front wheel bay to be closed up. So I went ahead and detailed out the front landing gear bay. I added some plastic card where I'd previously cut a hole down in here for the tire to fit up inside there. So I just added plastic card and threw some greeblies and some wires and stuff on the inside of the front landing gear bay to spruce that up a little bit. So that's basically it as far as that goes. I'm gonna grab the missiles and, well, let's see. Some of these missiles, especially the sidewinders, let me grab these. I went ahead and since I got bored, I went ahead and painted these up. Now, I'll flash up some pictures, but they had these really wide, big, toy-like looking raised details on this that weren't anywhere close to being accurate. So what I did is I just ground off all the raised detail and came along with some stretch sprue and glued stretch sprue in to replace the little, I guess, clamps and all this stuff that are around this, around the missile here. And I think that looks much better. I also drilled in some holes. I think this is the fuse area. I drilled some holes in there, and I think that it's a big improvement. So I'm going to get on with grinding the attachment points off and test fitting, and then we'll take a look at it once I get it all test fitted. Okay, as we can see, my test fitting didn't go so well, but I got it on there. The main issue that I had was right there, and I think when I put this top piece together, I was off a little bit. So what I ended up doing is just shimming it up with some pieces of plastic card, but my main focus was trying to get everything as flush as possible. So I'm gonna have to start doing some filling and sanding, but at least I'm not gonna have to deal with any steps, or at least not any major steps. So I'm gonna go ahead and snip off my plastic card, see what I got, and start filling and sanding along that area and along the wing root where it mates up. There's a little bit of a gap. I'll just use some 2-part epoxy putty, some Magic Sculpt to take care of that. So I'm going to get on with this, and I'll see you when it's done. All right, now I've almost got my panel line squared away on top. Now I did sand a little bit, and obviously I had to sand down and cut away my shims that I made with plastic card. And then I came in with some Tester's putty. Now I only use this when before I paint. And this is for gaps like what I had right along here where I didn't want to have to sand away any putty or rescribe anything, but the panel lines were too deep. So I just squirted this in some areas. You can see some of this white area right along here is probably Tester's putty. I think I got some plastic card in here. So I got a kind of a mishmash of different fillers, which is going to cause me an issue if I try to come in there and take my scribing tool and scribe back in the panel lines. So what I've done initially is I've taken this razor saw. It's pretty thick, and I don't normally use this on regular models because it is rather thick. I use a different, thinner razor saw. But on this one, it does work pretty well. So I can come in here and scribe my panel lines with this thing and basically just saw away the material. And it's going to give me a decent panel line that is going to be similar in width as the rest of them. And then I can also come in here, and if I need to widen it just a little bit, just come along and widen it that way. What I'm going to do now in order to check my work is I'm going to spray down some Mr. Surfacer 1000. It's a really thick primer, and it's going to allow me to see where all my errors are, see what panel lines need to be adjusted, and it's going to be pretty easy to do once I spray this down and it dries. And then I can sand away, I can add it a little bit more with the paintbrush and dab in some areas, and then rescribe with my razor saw. So that's my plan for that. I will have to mask off the cockpit before I do that. So I'm gonna get on with this, and then I'll show you what it looks like, and if there are any big issues, we'll tackle that once I find out what they are. Alrighty fellas, good news. It's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. So I sprayed this last night, and I'm actually impressed with how bad it doesn't look. So I do have some issues, and I marked them out with pencil marks, so I remember where they are. I mean, there's a couple little places that need to be taken care of, and that shouldn't be that difficult. So how I'm going to take care of this is I've got a couple different things here. Now, in here, and I don't know how well the camera's going to pick it up, but there's a little bit of opening right here where I'd put my scratch built part. And how I'm going to take care of that is with some Tamiya plastic putty. Now, I only use this after I've painted, and it's to fill in little areas like this. And there's a little bit of a hole. So what I'll do is I'll just take this, squirt it in here, make it all ooze out. And then I'll take a Q-tip, wet it with my spit, and then just come in here and do this little number. And then that should be good to go on that. Now, normally this is something I would use tester's putty for, because you can wipe it away. Pretty much the same method, only instead of using like water or your spit, you have to use rubbing alcohol or isopropyl alcohol. And obviously, since I've painted it, alcohol is going to rub away this paint. So that's not going to work. Now, I am going to have to come in here and wet sand the whole thing, but I can do that. And then I'll spray my final coat of primer once I take care of all these issues, and then wet sand it again so I can get a nice smooth finish. Because there are some areas where I've sanded and there's some scratches, but that's not going to be that big of an issue. So I just want to take care of these big issues right here for now. Let's see, this is a big monster. So I got it over here. I thought maybe I could get this on my normal workbench so you can see it. And it's going to be rather difficult, but we'll try. Now you can see right along here where I had inserted plastic card, it needs to be fixed. So how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to take my Mr. Surfacer 1000, and it'll probably take a couple applications of this. That's just the way it is, and because it does shrink a lot. But I'll just go ahead and I'm going to start filling in these areas right along here. Where it needs to be filled in. And then after I get it built up enough, then I'll just come in here and sand this, and then I'll take my razor saw and straighten out those panel lines. A bit of a razor saw mark right there. And I could probably come in here and get this. Right over here, there's a little opening where my panel line didn't, or where my tester's putty didn't fill in. So I just dabbed that, And then that should be good to go. And a couple other little spots. And I'm not going to take care of all these on camera. I just want to give you an idea of how I do this. All right. I'll get to work on the rest of this, and on the next video, I should have it all together and we should start to paint. Which, yay, finally after about 2 months. Oh, all right, well, thanks for watching, fellas. I will see you on the next episode.